Hey, how's it going everyone? Eric here, thanks for tuning in. How much money do experts recommend that you have between your 20s and your 60s, and is this a realistic figure? The amount of money that you're going to need is going to vary depending on how much money that you're making annually, where you live, as well as the lifestyle choices that you are making. For example, a person that desires to live a luxurious lifestyle and enjoys purchasing the finer things in life are going to need a lot more money than somebody like me who lives a minimalistic lifestyle and wears the same thing every day. I feel like there are so many important decisions that you have to make on a daily basis, and I usually don't waste one of them on what I'm going to wear unless it's for a special occasion or an interview. Furthermore, if you are living in California, you're probably going to need a lot more money than somebody living in, say, Idaho. I think this is an incredibly important topic because the reality is if you don't know how much money that you'll need at every age group, then you won't be able to understand how much money that you should be saving on a monthly basis, how to track your expenses, as well as when you can retire comfortably. I guarantee you that if you watch until the end of this video, you will know exactly how much money that you'll need in order to retire comfortably and live completely off of your investments. So without further ado, here's exactly how much money that you'll need at every age group and some tips and tricks on how to get back on tracks if you fall behind. But first, please make sure to subscribe to the YouTube channel if you haven't already and join the MilliPreneur community. Also, thank you so much for helping me get my first 100 subscribers and enabling me to change out my old and cringy URL for something more respectable and professional. Come on guys, I was 13 years old, cut me some slack. And here's to the next goal, 1,000 subscribers, let's get there. Maybe one day YouTube will allow me to pay for Lola's food. Please demolish that like button for me to show your appreciation for all the hours that I put in to make these videos tailored specifically for you. Also, make sure to turn on notifications so you are alerted every time that I post a video. And if you're feeling super generous today, feel free to comment below where you are in your financial journey and some of the things that you're going to be cutting out in order to retire sooner. So there are a ton of articles on how much money you should have saved up by 30, but not so many on how much you should save up by 20, so I figured that would be a good place to start. Take a guess at the average net worth of a 20-year-old in the United States today. I'll give you a second. Net worth is calculated by taking a person's assets or anything that they own of value and subtracting the liabilities or anything that they owe. I think this number may surprise you, or perhaps not, considering that so many people or so many 20-year-olds are drowning in student loan debt at the moment. The average net worth of a 20-year-old is negative $27,000. Yes, you heard me correctly. The average 20-year-old owes $27,000 before they even start working. So if you happen to owe less than $27,000 or have $0 in the bank account and don't owe anything at all, then congratulations, you are technically ahead of the average. This isn't surprising considering that the national student loan debt is $1.6 trillion. Yes, trillion with a T. My fellow MilliPreneurs, this is exactly the reason why I decided to start a YouTube channel in the first place. To help everyone who is willing to listen achieve financial freedom, maybe help you get out of the unethical amounts of debt that you took on because you may have simply felt like you had no other option. If you're 20 years old or in your early 20s, then I wouldn't worry too much about your net worth and instead focus on the framework of your financial success. However, you can definitely track your net worth if it motivates you like it motivates me. I would highly recommend checking out mint.com that assists you in actually tracking your net worth, or you can just go ahead and make a Google spreadsheet. Financial success begins in your 20s when you learn to save up your money and live frugally. I've said this before in my previous videos, but nobody expects you to be rich in your 20s anyway. So take advantage of this pass given to you by society and go shop at TJ Maxx, buy old or used cars, and last but not least, maybe learn how to cook. Full disclaimer, I am not a good cook, but I make the same damn egg sandwich every single day and it keeps me relatively satisfied. Super affordable if you ask me. The first thing that you should do is go and apply for a credit card so you can start building your credit history. I actually created an entire video dedicated to building your credit score, which I'll leave above. Considering that the average length of your credit history equates to 15% of your overall credit score, I highly recommend getting a credit card immediately. Having a high credit score will allow you to borrow money for a lot cheaper than people with less than stellar credit to finance maybe a mortgage, a business, or just a personal loan in general. This can save you a lot of money in the long run, so I highly recommend taking your credit score seriously. Second, save up as much money as possible and dedicate yourself to living a minimalistic lifestyle. This means cutting back on subscription services and going out less, which should be a little bit easier now considering that everything is closed. And please avoid keeping up with the Joneses. Nobody cares. I always see these young guys driving around in brand new sports cars that are super loud and I always wonder to myself, how much money are they spending in insurance? How much money is their gas bill every month? I'd like to have a competition on where the quietest car wins because that means that you're saving gas or your car's fully electric.
Honda Civic for the win, baby!
I remember when I was really young, I actually converted an old M&M dispenser into a piggy bank and would save up all of the money that I got from my side gigs like doing my chores or hosting garage sales. I pat younger Eric on the back for that one. But in all seriousness, if you are living with your parents currently, I would aim to save 95% of your income. You shouldn't have that many expenses at the moment. However, if you are living on your own, then at that point you should save between 60 to 70% of your income depending on how much you're paying in rent. Lastly, I'd also recommend opening a Roth IRA as soon as possible. I actually covered the Roth IRA in the first video I ever created on YouTube, which I'll link above as well. Roth IRAs are fantastic investments for young investors in which you can invest $6,000 annually if you're under the age of 50 and $7,000 if you are over the age of 50. The best part about this investment strategy is both your principal as well as your interest that you accumulate on that account will grow tax-free. To illustrate the power of compounding interest, if you started investing in a Roth IRA at the age of 18 and invested the max, which is $500 per month for 12 months, for let's say 40 years, you would have accumulated over $2 million in your Roth IRA that's tax-free. I recommend checking out either Vanguard or Betterment in order to start your Roth IRA. But again, go ahead and check out my other video that gives you a much more in-depth analysis of the Roth IRA, and we'll cover some things that you may not know. So like I said previously, don't worry too much about your net worth at this time, and instead focus on developing an understanding of finance and investing in Roth IRAs and building your credit. The age group up next are those that are approaching their 30s. Most of the resources that I have looked into have suggested that you have 1 year of your income saved up for retirement. This is obviously going to vary depending on what state you live in and how much money that you make annually. However, the average income of a 30-year-old is about $48,000 here in the United States, so if you have more than $48,000 saved up, again, congratulations, you're ahead of the curve. I think that if you graduate from college with a little bit of debt, then it's reasonable to believe that you can hit 1 times your annual income saved up by 30. However, if you got into the workforce immediately after you graduated from high school, then at that point I think it's more realistic to believe that you can save up between 1.5 to 2 times your annual income. And just a quick side note, if you want to aim higher than the figures that I just shared with you, then by all means go ahead, have high aspirations, shoot for the stars. My friend Chris and I actually have an ongoing bet about who is going to hit $1 million net worth first, and I'm putting money on myself to win that. Side bets are absolutely encouraged. Between the ages of 20 and 30, it is likely that your pay is also going to increase. Now, I cannot emphasize this point enough. If you get a raise, do not spend the difference. A lot of people end up getting trapped in the rat race, which is essentially the idea that people continue to spend more money as they make more money, buy more expensive things, putting them in more debt, and staying on this habitual cycle of just spending. This leaves people with little to no money saved up for their retirement, and they basically require their 9-to-5 job to pay off those debts that they've accumulated. This cycle continues until they are inevitably unable to work anymore, and then they have nothing left. This may explain why you'll see elderly people working for minimum wage because they unfortunately can no longer work in their previous jobs. In order to avoid this, whenever I make extra money from my commissions, I invest it directly into my Roth IRA or I put it into my high yield savings accounts. I'm then going to use that savings account to purchase my first investment property within the next 6 months, and I'll keep you updated on that. Again, this is the time to build your foundation and financial knowledge so that you can jumpstart your ability to retire early and to become financially independent. I would also recommend having a credit score of between 780 and 800 by now. You can build your credit score by never missing a payment, never overutilizing your credit limit, having a long credit history, as well as being responsible with multiple lines of credit. Many people will purchase a property around this age, so if you have a higher credit score, it's going to save you a substantial amount of money when borrowing from lenders. Next, I would argue that being debt-free is essential as well, with the exception of maybe a mortgage or a business loan. My cousin was able to pay off over $25,000 in less than 5 months just by implementing some of the principles that I had recommended to her, as well as living under my parents' roof. She felt like a huge weight was lifted off of her shoulders once that was all paid off, and it will for you too. Just make sure to prioritize those high interest loans. Being debt-free by 30 will allow you to really start building your investments and not feel like you're being held back by anything. It will also enable you to retire sooner than you ever thought possible. Once you hit your 40s, this is when all the hard work that you did in your 20s and 30s will really start paying off. Your previous investments in real estate and the stock market now have had 20 years to multiply. This is when your money will really start working for you. Various sources will tell you to save up at least 3 times of your annual income in investments such as a Roth IRA, 401k, or a basic brokerage account. Ideally, by this point, you are not relying on your 9-to-5 to pay off all your bills, and you have other sources of income that you've built over the years. Here are a few things that you should do in order to maximize your investments before you turn 50. This goes without saying, but I highly recommend having a spreadsheet of your income as well as your expenses. You should make it a habit to update this spreadsheet a couple times every month. This is definitely something that you can get started with prior to turning 40, even if you don't have that many expenses. Definitely make sure that you track all of the expenses that you're spending money on, and make sure to keep your receipts, especially if they are business expenses that you can write off on your taxes. The next thing I'd recommend is maximizing your retirement accounts, such as the Roth or the 401k. You can invest, like I said, $6,000 annually in a Roth IRA and $19,500 in a 401k. Hopefully, your employer will elect to match a certain portion of your salary. The most common match provided by employers is 50% of what you put in, up to 6% of your your salary. In other words, if your annual salary was $100,000 per month, you would have to put in $6,000 annually for your employer to match you that additional 50%, which is $3,000. So really, you're getting $3,000 invested into your account for free just for putting in $6,000 into your 401k. Also, every dollar that you invest into your 401k is actually considered a tax write-off and deducts from your annual income. Thus, I highly recommend taking advantage of that employer match because, like I said, it's essentially free money that's being put into your account. Now, if you haven't invested in real estate by the time that you're 40, I highly recommend doing so. I know that owning a house isn't for everybody, but it will help prevent you from being taken advantage of by landlords that want to increase your rents. I'm not sure that's something that you want to be dealing with during your golden years. Now, by the time that you are 50 years old, a lot of sites recommend having at least between 5 to 7 times your annual income. For example, if your annual income is $100,000 per year, then it would make sense for you to shoot for between $500,000 to $700,000 saved up in your retirement accounts. However, it is also very important that around this age that you start considering investing in bonds because they are generally seen as safer investments than stocks. The idea is that you can't take the same risks that are associated with investing in the stock market like you could when you were in your 20s. In other words, stocks are higher risk and higher reward, while bonds are lower risk, lower reward. Next, I believe that you should have your primary residence at least 2/3 of the way paid off. If you have been saving and investing properly, it would be ideal to actually have multiple properties with substantial equity in each of them. Interest rates are at all-time lows at the moment thanks to the Fed and Chairman Jerome Powell, so it may be a good time for you to look into investing into real estate in the near future since the cost to borrow money is so ridiculously cheap at the moment. If you have a good credit score, you could get a loan for between 3 to 3.25%, which equates to $3,000 to $3,250 for every $100,000 that you borrow. Lastly, you have to have a crystal clear idea of what your retirement is going to look like. This could include the desired age that you'd want to retire, how much money that you'd want to pull out of your accounts annually so that you could pay for your standard of living, and where you would like to live in order to enjoy your retirement to the fullest. Now, if you look at your accounts and you find out that no matter how much money you make, you would never be able to satisfy those minimum requirements, I'd recommend taking a serious look at your current lifestyle and figuring out where you can cut some expenses. You may also want to consider moving to a cheaper neighborhood and just saving up as much money as humanly possible to make up for the years that you weren't thinking about your retirement. And finally, you've hit your 60s. You've worked your entire life and you've invested properly. You've lived frugally in your youth and you're going to thank yourself that you did. At this point, you should have between 10 to 12 times your annual salary saved up. Have your primary residence paid off in full if you haven't done so already. And be prepared to enjoy your yearly trips to South America, to Europe, or wherever you fancy. In just a few short years, you're going to be retiring and you'll be able to pull out your funds from your retirement accounts without any penalties. Also, you may be able to tap into Social Security benefits in your 60s. However, if you are a millennial, it is unclear as to whether or not Social Security will even exist when we retire. The reason being that seniors are pulling more money out than taxpayers are putting in. The Social Security program is having some serious problems because back when it was introduced in the 1930s, the average lifespan was 60 years of age, and now it's closer to 80, 78 to 80. So you can see how this is an obvious problem because Social Security isn't paid out until the age of 62. The government was basically banking on the fact that people were passing away prior to the age of 62, and that's why the program has lasted for so long. This is a pretty big problem for Social Security considering that medicine is getting better, so people are living longer and needing access to Social Security for longer as well. But don't worry, because you are a responsible investor, you won't even need Social Security benefits in order to retire comfortably. And there you have it. I think those are some of the milestones that you should shoot for every age. It is clear that some people will be ahead of these recommendations while others will be behind them, but the idea is that you just need to start somewhere. Don't compare yourself to others because everybody is at a different point on their financial journey. The reality is the sooner that you start, the better. And that's it. My hope is that now you understand how much money that you'll need at every stage of your life. And I also hope that I equipped you with the necessary tools and investing advice in order for you to get there. Please subscribe to my YouTube channel if you haven't already to join the MilliPreneur community. If I provided you any value on this video, feel free to give it a thumbs up. It really helps me out. And also turn on notifications so that you know every time that I post a video. Check out my blog at millipreneur.blog and feel free to follow me on Instagram at Eric_Anthony_Lopez. Thanks for watching and I'll see you on the next video.